We have this completely anonymous recording of a live psychological consultation today, and it really answers this question that I feel like plagues almost everyone at some point. Like, why does spending money on yourself sometimes feel like a literal physical threat?
Oh, absolutely. It's a universal friction.
Right. Or, on the absolute flip side of that, why do we sometimes buy things we don't even really want?
Yeah.
Driven by this weird compulsion that feels just completely out of our control.
Yeah, we are unpacking an incredibly raw case study today. Completely anonymous, like you said, but so revealing. Our mission here is to unravel the hidden, almost invisible emotional architecture behind our wallets.
I love that phrasing, emotional architecture.
Thanks. Yeah, we're going to explore how our spending habits, our financial anxieties, and even just our relationship with physical objects in our house are secretly tethered to these deep, unexamined fears of rejection,
Yeah.
and of course, our desperate desires for safety.
Right. And I want to talk directly to you, the listener, right out of the gate here. Just picture this scenario. It's maybe 11:30 at night.
Oh, the danger zone.
Exactly, the danger zone. You are exhausted, you're scrolling on your phone in bed, and you find yourself inexplicably clicking add to cart for like a highly specialized kitchen gadget or a decorative lamp that you absolutely do not need.
But you feel like you have to have it right then.
Yes. You feel this weird, hollow urgency to buy it. Or maybe you've experienced the exact opposite. Like you have the money, you've worked hard, but when you go to spend, say, $40 on a nicer dinner for yourself, you feel this sharp, almost biological pang of guilt in your stomach.
The physical sensation is so key. It's not just a passing thought, you know? It's a somatic response. Your body is actually reacting to currency.
It's wild. And today, we are going to figure out exactly why your nervous system is literally hijacking your bank account.
We really are.
So we're going to start by looking at this highly relatable story of a sudden, bizarre shopping compulsion from our source material. And from there, we'll explore the totally confusing emotional dissonance behind it.
Step by step.
Exactly. Gradually revealing the invisible subconscious rules that are actually running the show. And ultimately, we'll end with a broader reflection on what this all means for human potential and our ability to experience true abundance.
I think the most fascinating thing about the materials we're analyzing today is that they treat money not as like a mathematical certainty, but as an emotional language.
Emotional language, right?
Yeah, and the narrative anchor for this whole exploration is a woman who historically has always built her entire identity around the intellect. She is the ultimate archetype of the growth-oriented cerebral individual.
Like very in her head.
Very much so. She is someone who would happily and without a single second of hesitation drop thousands of dollars on education or professional coaching or acquiring new skills.
Right, because she values the intangible. She invests in the architecture of her own mind, basically.
Exactly.
And because she has placed such a huge premium on intellectual and spiritual pursuits, she actually carries a bit of a bias against the physical world. Like she has this slight air of superiority regarding material objects.
She definitely does.
She actually mentions in the consultation that she would often scoff at her sister for buying, yet another fancy porcelain teacup or a super expensive dining room set.
Right. She thought it was silly.
Her internal monologue was basically, what a frivolous waste of resources. Why anchor yourself to physical objects when you could be expanding your mind?
Which honestly is a very common hierarchy of values in our culture. We so often categorize the intellectual as noble and the material as superficial.
Oh, 100%.
But here is where the psychological stability of this specific woman just totally shatters. Because recently, she has been ambushed by this completely uncontrollable urge to acquire physical objects.
Which is so out of character for her.
Entirely out of character. She walks into a store or browses online, sees a random household item, and feels this burning primal necessity to own it.
It's not a calculated purchasing decision at all. It's a full-blown compulsion.
Yeah.
And the specific example discussed in the consultation perfectly illustrates how irrational this compulsion is. She has a child, and she suddenly becomes obsessed, like completely consumed with the idea that she absolutely must replace her child's car seat.
Now, let's pause and establish the reality of this car seat for a second. Was it structurally compromised? No.
Not at all.
Had it been in an accident? No. Was it expired or unsafe according to modern regulations? Absolutely not. It was perfectly, completely functional.
Right.
Its only flaw, if you can even call it a flaw, was that it had been used. It was slightly worn around the edges. There was maybe like a scuff mark on the plastic base, or maybe the fabric was a tiny bit faded from the
It's
sun.
just normal wear and tear.
Exactly. From a purely utilitarian standpoint, she could have continued using it for years without an issue.
But she couldn't tolerate it. She describes this sudden, overwhelming, almost suffocating need to buy a brand new one out of the box. And the justification she uses, the feeling she was chasing, was a need to achieve a sense of, quote, cleanliness and order.
Cleanliness and order. Notice how that has absolutely nothing to do with the safety of the child.
Right. Zero to do with safety.
It has everything to do with the aesthetic environment. She is attempting to curate a flawless physical reality.
Let's layer another anecdote on top of this car seat situation, too.
Yeah.
Because the consultation highlights a parallel event in her life that shows just how deeply this weird aesthetic vulnerability runs.
Oh, the boardroom meeting.
Yes, the meeting. So she is attending a highly critical professional meeting. And she is the authority in the room. Her expertise, her intellect, the very thing she has spent thousands and thousands of dollars cultivating are literally the only things that logically matter in this context.
She is the absolute heavy hitter in the room.
She is, but right before or during the meeting, she looks down and realizes that the shirt she is wearing has a slight wrinkle in it.
Just a tiny fold.
The fold in the fabric that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And the moment her brain registers that physical imperfection, her entire internal state completely collapses.
It's wild how fast it happens.
It really is. She doesn't just feel slightly annoyed. She describes feeling entirely worthless. Her confidence just evaporates. Her ability to communicate effectively plummets. She suddenly feels like she is at the absolute bottom of the social and professional hierarchy in that room, all because of a wrinkled piece of cotton.
It is a profound neurological misfire.
I mean, imagine being a brilliant neurosurgeon who has performed thousands of successful operations. She walks into the operating room, scrubbed in, fully prepared to save a life. But then she notices, like, a tiny coffee stain on the sleeve of her scrubs, and she suddenly feels entirely incapable of holding the scalpel.
Right. She feels like an imposter.
Exactly. It's a total social signaling mismatch. Why does a superficial flaw in the physical world completely dismantle decades of internal competence?
Well, to understand that, we really have to look at the evolutionary biology of social signaling.
Okay, let's get into that.
So, in the ancestral environment, aesthetic deviation or physical untidiness could often signal disease, right? Or poor resource management or a lack of social awareness. If you didn't fit the pristine mold of the tribe, you were at risk of being marginalized.
And back then, that was a big deal.
It was everything. In the ancestral environment, tribal exclusion meant literal death. You could not survive alone.
So her brain isn't looking at the wrinkle and saying, oh, I need to iron this later when I get home. Her brain is looking at the wrinkle, recognizing a deviation from the acceptable tribal norm, and triggering a full-blown primal survival alarm.
Yes.
The amygdala is flashing red, saying, you are flawed. The tribe will notice. You will be cast out. You will die.
That is precisely the mechanism. Her nervous system is reacting as if a saber-toothed tiger just casually walked into the boardroom.
Oh, wow.
Logically, she knows her professional value isn't tied to the shirt. And logically, she knows her value as a mother isn't tied to the unscuffed plastic of a car seat. Yet the emotional disconnect is just massive. Her body is entirely hijacked by the fear of physical imperfection.
I really want you, the listener, to pause and reflect on this dynamic for a second. Think about a time when you were in a professional setting, or maybe at a social gathering with peers you really wanted to impress. Did you ever suddenly realize your shoes were scuffed? Or that the car you pulled up in was visibly older and messier than everyone else's?
Oh, or pulling out a phone with a cracked screen.
Yes. Pulling out a cracked phone while everyone else has the newest model. In that specific moment, did your brilliant ideas suddenly feel less valid? Did you shrink physically? Did you maybe speak a little softer? We all do it.
We do, every single one of us. And this brings us to the core confusion and the monumental challenge that's highlighted in the consultation. There is this incredibly common yet rarely examined internal conflict.
What's the conflict?
Well, most people will readily claim that they want wealth.
Right.
They want comfort, they want a beautiful home, they want abundance. But beneath the surface, subconsciously, they're actually engaged in this bitter war with the physical reality of the world.
Explain that war. Like, what exactly are we fighting against?
We are fighting against the fundamental mechanics of exchange. Many people hold this deep-seated, almost invisible resentment that the world requires money for basic comforts.
Mm.
There is a low-grade chronic anger that simply existing comfortably has a toll booth attached to it, you
Mhm.
know? You have to pay for the electricity to stay warm. You have to pay for the water to stay clean. You have to pay for the pristine car seat to feel like a good parent.
It's the friction of currency.
Hmm.
We resent that our life energy has to be constantly drained
Mm-hmm.
just to maintain a baseline of dignity in modern society.
Exactly. And the consultation gets into why this friction exists, fundamentally. It touches on the abstraction of value because in our deep evolutionary history, exchange was incredibly tangible.
Right.
You hunted a deer, I gathered a basket of berries, and we traded. The value was immediate, biological, and completely self-evident. You could see the calories, you could taste the effort.
There was no ambiguity about what a basket of berries was worth. It was worth surviving until tomorrow.
Exactly. But as society scaled up, that system pure barter became impossibly complex. I mean, if you have berries, but I need a tool, and the tool maker only wants leather, the entire system just grinds to a halt.
So humanity invented money.
Right. Money is simply an agreed upon neutral placeholder for value. It is an abstraction. But our primitive brains never truly adapted to that level of abstraction.
And because it's an abstraction, we attach all of our survival anxiety to it. Like, if I trade you a deer for berries, my brain knows I have food. If I hand over 50 digital dollars for a plastic storage container at the store, my brain struggles to categorize that exchange. It just feels like a pure loss of resources.
Which is exactly why the pain of paying is a documented neurological phenomenon.
Wait, really? It's documented.
Oh, yeah. When you hand over cash, or even when you just swipe a credit card, functional MRI scans show that the insula, which is the region of the brain associated with physical pain and disgust, actually lights up.
You're kidding?
I'm not. Your brain registers the loss of currency very similarly to how it registers a physical injury.
That is wild. So when I go to the register and I feel that little hesitation, that's not just me being frugal or careful. That's my literal brain trying to protect me from perceived physical harm.
Yes. And this brings us to a monumental psychological revelation from the source material. Because of this bizarre neurological quirk, our entire mental framework around spending is often completely inverted.
Oh.
When a lot of people make a purchase, their entire emotional and cognitive bandwidth is focused exclusively on the pain of parting with their money. They are actively mourning the departure of the numbers from their bank account.
So they are entirely focused on the deficit.
Exactly. And by focusing on the deficit, they completely ignore the joy, the utility, or the comfort of what they're actually receiving. The consultation emphasizes this beautiful philosophical concept here. Humans are biologically and spiritually designed as receiving beings.
Receiving beings. I like that.
Right. We inhale oxygen, we consume nutrients, we absorb information, we take in love and connection. We are meant to process and benefit from our environment.
But when we hyperfixate on the cost of things, we short-circuit that whole receiving process.
We completely block it. Think about it. If you spend $40 on a beautiful meal, but the entire time you're chewing your food, your internal monologue is just going, I can't believe I just wasted $40. This wasn't financially prudent. I shouldn't have done this.
You ruin the meal.
You are energetically and biologically devaluing the experience. You are flooding your system with stress hormones like cortisol, which literally impairs your digestion and prevents you from experiencing the dopamine and serotonin that should come from eating a pleasurable meal.
You are literally sabotaging the very joy you just paid for.
Mm.
It's like buying a ticket to an amusement park, but spending the entire roller coaster ride staring at your receipt and crying about the entrance fee. You miss the ride entirely.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. You initiate the transaction with profound resistance, and when you do anything with reluctance, everything feels heavy. If you force yourself to go to a social event when your body is screaming for rest, every single conversation feels like lifting weights. Similarly, when you part with your money through a lens of pain, resentment, and reluctance, you cannot appreciate the item. You look at it and you essentially declare, this isn't worth it.
And the moment you declare it not worth it, you guarantee that you won't extract the value from it.
Exactly. You drag the frequency of the entire exchange down to the level of regret.
Okay, this brings up the most crucial question we can ask. Where does that script come from? Because no one is born doing this. A toddler doesn't look at a shiny new toy block and run a complex cost-benefit analysis.
No, they don't.
A toddler just reaches for the joy. Why do we develop this automatic, painful reflex to look at our own desires and instantly declare, that's not worth it?
To answer that, the consultation takes us deep into the realm of early childhood conditioning and developmental psychology. It paints a very vivid, honestly almost heartbreaking picture of how our earliest subconscious rules about worth and money are written.
Set the scene for us.
So imagine a young child, maybe 7 or 8 years old. They are walking through a department store with their parent. Suddenly, they see something that completely captures their imagination. It represents pure, unadulterated joy to them. The consultation uses the example of a fancy, multi-tiered magnetic pencil case, or like a pair of bright, shiny red patent leather shoes.
Oh, man. I remember those pencil cases. If you had the one with the hidden compartments that popped out when you pressed the little plastic buttons,
Yeah.
you were basically a wizard in the third grade.
You were royalty.
It was a massive status symbol, but it was also just a marvel engineering to a kid. It was
Yeah.
pure magic.
Exactly. To the child, it is magic. So the child points to the pencil case or the red shoes. Their eyes are wide, their heart is full of desire, and they ask their parent to buy it. Now, let's look at the parent. The parent in this scenario is not living in extreme poverty. They have the financial means to purchase the item without risking their ability to pay rent or buy groceries that week. But the parent looks at the item, their adult brain runs a practical macroeconomic calculation based on their own biases, and they just say, no, we don't have money for that. Or they say, no, that's way too expensive for what it is. It's a waste.
Now, as an adult, I hear that, and I completely understand what the parent means. The parent is communicating a strategy of budget prioritization. They are saying, hey, I prefer to keep this specific quantum of currency in our savings account earning interest rather than exchanging it for a novelty item that you will probably lose or get bored of in 3 weeks.
Right.
It's a logistical decision.
It is entirely logical to the adult. But here is the critical, devastating translation error that the psychological analysis points out. The child's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex planning, understanding long-term consequences, and abstract financial strategy, is not fully developed.
Not even close.
The child does not possess the cognitive framework to understand macroeconomics or budget prioritization.
So if they don't understand the logic of the budget, how on earth do they process that rejection?
They process it emotionally and personally. The child does not hear, this item is not a prudent financial choice for our household at this time. The child hears, you are not worth the money it takes to buy this.
Wow, that is a massive leap. But it makes total sense from a developmental standpoint. Children are inherently egocentric. They believe everything happens because of them.
Precisely. They are the center of their universe. Furthermore, let's look at attachment theory. A child's literal survival depends on maintaining the love and approval of their caregiver.
Yeah.
When the child expresses a deep, authentic desire and the caregiver instantly dismisses that desire as frivolous or a waste, the child learns a very dangerous lesson. They learn that their desires are a burden. If their deepest desire is deemed unnecessary by the ultimate authority figure, the subconscious leap the child makes is, my desires are unnecessary, therefore I am unnecessary, therefore I am unnecessary.
The parent is inadvertently communicating, you are not valuable enough for me to exchange my resources for your joy. And so, to maintain the safety of the parent's approval, the child learns to suppress their own desires. They learn to view their own wants as dangerous or bad.
It is a foundational conditioning of self-devaluation. And the true tragedy of this dynamic is that the parents almost never realize what they're doing.
They think they're helping.
They do. They believe they are instilling virtues. They think they are teaching frugality, humility, and financial responsibility. But because they are not explaining the actual mechanics of the budget and simply shutting down the emotion of the desire, they are actually planting a deep, myelinated neural pathway of unworthiness.
And neural pathways that are fired repeatedly in childhood become the superhighways of our adult behavior.
Exactly.
So let's fast forward. How does a child who internalized the message, my desires are a waste of resources, operate when they are 35 or 40 or 50 years old?
It manifests as a pervasive, chronic practice of self-denial. The consultation connects this childhood wound directly to everyday adult decision-making.
Give me an example.
Let's look at a seemingly simple choice about clothing. You are an adult, you have a solid career, and you are attending an important event. You need a new outfit, you go shopping, and you find a beautifully tailored, high-quality silk garment. It fits perfectly, it makes you feel powerful, and it costs $500.
Okay, so it's a premium item.
Right, and right next to it on the rack is a mass-produced synthetic garment. The stitching is a bit rough, the fabric doesn't breathe, it doesn't fit quite right, but it only costs $50. Now, Functionally, practically, they both achieve the exact same basic objective. They cover your body so you aren't arrested for public indecency.
It's the adult version of your mom saying, "We have food at home," when you ask for a burger. Functionally true, but emotionally void.
Exactly. Now, if you have a healthy sense of self-worth and you prefer the $50 item because you genuinely don't care about fashion and you would rather spend the $500 on a plane ticket, that is a conscious, empowered choice.
Right.
But if you have that unhealed childhood belief running in the background of your psyche, the dynamic is entirely different. Even if you have $50,000 sitting comfortably in your checking account, you will look at that beautiful silk garment and your brain will instantly play the old tape. No, I don't deserve that. That's a waste of money. Who do I think I am? The $50 one is perfectly fine.
And you trick yourself into believing you're just being financially savvy.
Mhm.
But the consultation is arguing that it isn't prudence at all. It is active self-punishment.
It is the ritualistic practice of self-denial. It is you looking directly at your own desire for quality, for beauty, for tactile comfort, and saying to yourself, you are not worth this exchange of value. You belong in the rough, ill-fitting synthetic. And this is where the source material introduces an incredibly stark warning about how reality functions. It argues that the world operates essentially as an energetic mirror.
How so? Explain the mirror concept.
Well, if you are constantly practicing self-denial, your internal frequency, your behavioral microexpressions, your boundaries, your standard of acceptable treatment broadcasts a very clear message to everyone around you. The message is, my desires don't matter, my comfort isn't worth investing in, my inherent value is minimal, and the world will happily mirror that exact frequency back to you.
Give me a concrete example of how the world mirrors that self-devaluation.
The consultation applies this directly to the professional arena, which is honestly devastating for freelancers, entrepreneurs, or anyone providing a specialized service.
Oh, I bet.
If you internally devalue your own worth, you will consistently attract clients who try to lowball you. You will find yourself surrounded by people who constantly ask to, quote, pick your brain for free.
Oh, the worst.
Your boss will expect you to work weekends without overtime pay. And you will tolerate it because your own internal unspoken boundary dictates, my value is negotiable, I am not worth a premium.
I want to introduce an analogy here because this is such a vital concept for everyone to grasp. Think of this subconscious belief of unworthiness like a background app running on your smartphone.
Okay, I like this.
You know how sometimes your phone battery is draining incredibly fast and you can't figure out why? You aren't watching videos, you aren't playing games, but the battery's just plummeting. Finally, you look at your settings and you realize some random app you downloaded 3 years ago has been constantly tracking your location and refreshing data in the background, consuming all your power.
That is exactly how these core beliefs operate.
You can try to fix the problem by constantly plugging the phone into the wall. You can hustle, you can work 3 jobs, you can pour all the money in the world in your bank account. But until you go into the system settings and force quit that background app, until you identify and dismantle the belief that you are unworthy, your abundance will always drain away.
It will.
You will subconsciously sabotage business deals, you will chronically undercharge for your services, or you will suddenly experience a bizarre, unexpected expense that mysteriously wipes out the exact amount you just managed to save. The financial reality self-corrects to match the baseline of your emotional self-worth.
It is an unavoidable law of human behavior. You cannot out-earn your own self-image. And the consultation shares a profound conceptual anecdote to really hammer home the true cost of this devaluation. It shifts the focus from money to something much more finite.
What's the anecdote?
Imagine a high-level consultant who provides a 1-hour advisory session with a client. The session concludes, and the next day the client calls back. The client is dissatisfied, completely unreasonable, and demands a full refund of the fee.
I mean, it happens. It's the cost of doing business sometimes.
It does happen. But in this hypothetical scenario, the consultant doesn't just sigh and process the refund to make the problem go away. The consultant replies with a boundary that shifts the entire paradigm.
What do they say?
The consultant says, okay, I am willing to give you your money back, but first, you must give me back the hour of my life.
Oh, wow. That stops you right in your track.
The consultant continues, give me back the 60 minutes I could have spent reading a book. Give me back the hour I could have spent eating a meal with my spouse or playing with my children or simply resting. Give me back the hour of my life energy that I can literally never, ever recover. Once you return my time, I will return your money.
Which is impossible. You can transfer digital numbers back and forth infinitely, but time is biological entropy. It only moves in one direction. Once it is spent, it is gone forever.
And that is the crux of the lesson. True value isn't located in the paper currency or the digits on a screen. The true value is the irrecoverable life energy that was expended.
Right.
When you discount your services, when you let a client haggle your prices down, or when you deny yourself a basic comfort to save a few pennies, you aren't just making a financial decision. You are broadcasting to the universe that your irrecoverable life energy is cheap. You are saying your time on this earth is not valuable.
That is heavy, but it is so necessary to hear. Okay, let's take all of this, the childhood conditioning, the friction of currency, the background app draining our worth, and bring it back to our live case study.
Let's do it.
We left our woman in a state of crisis. She has the sudden, uncontrollable urge to buy the pristine new car seat. She feels entirely worthless because of a wrinkled shirt. We know there's a subconscious war happening. But how does the facilitator in the consultation actually break through her defenses? Like, how do they get to the root of her specific compulsion?
This is where the consultation transitions from theoretical psychology into active surgical unearthing. The facilitator does something brilliant. If the facilitator had just asked her, "Why do you feel the need to buy this car seat?" her brain would have immediately thrown up logical defenses.
Of course. She would have cited safety blogs or aesthetic preferences or cleanliness standards.
Because the ego will always defend its compulsions with logic.
Always.
So the facilitator bypasses the logical defense mechanism entirely by asking her to visualize a symbol. The facilitator asks, when you think of the clean, organized, pristine life that you are so desperately trying to purchase, who do you picture? Who embodies that flawless existence in your mind?
That is a phenomenal question. It goes straight to the archetype. It forces her to identify the idol she is worshiping, basically. So who does she picture? Given her intellectual background, does she picture a serene Zen monk or a highly successful, poised CEO?
No, her answer is startlingly modern, and it reveals exactly how societal conditioning has shifted. The person she visualizes is a flawless, highly curated social media influencer.
An influencer. Wait, the woman who used to scoff at porcelain teacups because they weren't intellectual enough is secretly idolizing an influencer.
Yes. She pictures an archetype of someone who is always perfectly pristine. Someone whose home is impeccably designed in beige and white, devoid of any real-world mess.
Ugh, the beige aesthetic.
Right. Someone who effortlessly and quickly adapts to every new wellness trend, who always has the latest aesthetically pleasing gadget, and who never, ever has a single hair out of place or a single wrinkle in their clothing.
Let's dissect why that is so telling. In the past, authority figures were based on competence, the elder, the skilled artisan, the intellectual. But modern society, heavily mediated by screens, has replaced competence-based authority with aesthetic-based authority.
It really has.
We are conditioned to believe that someone whose physical environment is perfectly curated must also have their internal emotional life perfectly sorted. We look at the influencer and think, if my kitchen looked like that, I would never feel anxiety again.
Which is a complete illusion. It's parasocial perfectionism. But the psychological link the facilitator exposes here is profound. The woman doesn't actually want to be an influencer. She has no desire to film her morning routine. And she isn't buying a new car seat because she genuinely cares about having the newest model for its own sake. She is doing it because her subconscious has written a very specific, incredibly dangerous mathematical equation.
What is the equation running in her head?
The equation is perfection equals praise, approval, and safety.
It all comes back to survival.
Always. And if perfection equals safety from the tribe, then the inverse must also be true. Imperfection, a warm car seat, a slightly wrinkled shirt, a messy kitchen counter equals rejection, criticism, and exclusion from the tribe.
This realization changes the entire context of her behavior. Her shopping spree isn't about rampant consumerism. It isn't greed. It's a survival mechanism. She is terrified.
She is terrified of being seen as flawed. She is buying armor. She feels incredibly vulnerable to judgment. And she genuinely believes that if she can just curate a physical environment that is completely unassailably flawless, no one will be able to criticize her.
That makes so much sense.
Think about the logic. If the car seat is brand new out of the box, no other mother at the playground can judge her parenting. If her shirt is perfectly pressed, no colleague in the boardroom can question her intelligence. She is exhausting her life energy and draining her bank account, trying to build an impenetrable fortress of perfection to protect her soft, vulnerable core from being judged.
It is utterly exhausting just listening to that dynamic. Imagine living with that constant, unforgiving internal surveillance.
Constant.
Every physical object around you is no longer just an object. It is a potential liability. The coffee cup on your desk isn't just holding coffee. It's a testament to your organizational skills.
Check his act.
The scuff on your shoe is a billboard announcing your failure. If your safety depends on controlling how the world perceives every single object you interact with, you will live in a state of perpetual, vibrating anxiety.
And this is exactly where we witness the severe physical toll of these emotional blocks. The mind and the body are not separate entities.
No, they aren't.
As the facilitator starts to walk the woman through this massive realization, they introduce a mental exercise. They ask the woman to verbally, out loud, release the obligation to be perfect. They ask her to give herself permission to be a little messy, to be uncoordinated, to be a mother with a functionally worn car seat.
They are asking her to voluntarily lower her shield. What happens when she tries to speak the words?
Her body revolts. Right in the middle of the live consultation, as she tries to speak this new truth, she is suddenly overcome by a violent, irrepressible coughing fit.
A physiological reaction.
Yes.
Like a literal choking sensation.
Yes. It completely interrupts the session. And the analysis in the source material offers a fascinating neurobiological view on this event. It posits that our emotional vulnerabilities, our deepest traumas, and our restrictive beliefs are not just abstract thoughts floating in the ether of our minds.
They're physical.
They are literally stored in the physical tissues of the body. They are held in the fascia, in the muscle memory, and in the nervous system.
The body keeps the score. It stores the stress of maintaining that armor.
Precisely. And the respiratory system specifically is intrinsically linked to our emotional states. Think about what happens when you panic. Your breathing becomes shallow, your chest tightens. The coughing fit represents a profound somatic release. The vagus nerve is suddenly flooded with new signaling.
Wow.
Her body is physically, forcefully rejecting and expelling this old, suffocating belief that she must be perfect to be loved. The expert in the consultation compares it to pulling a deeply embedded splinter or picking a heavy scab.
Oh, that's a visceral image.
Right. For years, she had this hard, protective shell covering a tender wound. Tearing it off causes a brief, intense flare of pain and a violent physical reaction, but it is the absolute necessary precursor to true healing. The infection has to come out.
That is incredible. The idea that a belief system can be so deeply rooted in your biology that letting it go causes your body to literally convulse and cough it out. So once the coughing subsides, how do they proceed? How does the facilitator help her permanently remove this armor?
They utilize a highly potent visualization technique. The facilitator asks her to close her eyes and describe exactly what this crushing need for perfection feels like on her physical body. The woman visualizes the burden as a heavy, restrictive mask, but it's a very specific, peculiar kind of mask.
How so?
It covers only the front of her face and the front of her torso.
Only the front. Why is that detail significant?
It is deeply symbolic of her social anxiety. It represents how she interfaces with the world. The mask blocks her forward vision, making it hard to see where she's going. It restricts her forward movement, making her stiff and unnatural. But it only protects the front, the part of her that faces the audience.
Wow. It is purely a facade.
Yes. It doesn't protect her core, it only manages her image. The facilitator gently guides her through a visualization of grabbing the bottom of this mask and violently tearing it off, peeling it away from her skin.
What does tearing off the mask represent for her practically in her day-to-day life, like after she leaves the consultation?
It represents the terrifying but liberating act of giving herself permission to not be perfectly organized. It is the conscious decision to resign from the exhausting job of being the most pristine, adaptable person in the room.
Resigning from perfection. I love that.
And most importantly, it is the profound realization that even without that flawless, exhausting facade, she is still entirely worthy of love, approval, and existence. She is relinquishing the need to control how the physical world perceives her. She is letting the shirt be wrinkled and realizing she will not die.
This is a massive paradigm shift. If we step back and look at the entire arc of this exploration, from the compulsive shopping to the resentment of money to the childhood conditioning and finally tearing off the mask of perfection, what does this ultimately teach us about human potential? How do we apply this?
It's a huge question.
Because I feel like every single person listening right now has their own version of that mask. We all have our own version of the wrinkled shirt that makes us feel small, or the car seat we buy to prove our worth.
The overarching synthesis of the consultation is a radical redefinition of what true abundance actually is. The woman in the case study achieves a breakthrough by realizing that true ease, true comfort in life does not come from finally accumulating the best, newest, most flawless objects.
Because that is a race you can literally never win.
Never.
There will always be a newer car, a more aesthetic lamp, a more expensive silk shirt.
Yeah.
If your peace depends on having the best, you will run on a treadmill until you drop dead.
Exactly. True ease comes from actively detaching your inherent self-worth from those physical things. When she realizes that she no longer has to be perfect to feel safe, her life suddenly becomes incredibly light. The gravity shifts.
Yeah.
She can still choose to buy a new car seat if she genuinely wants one for convenience, but she no longer needs to buy it to protect herself from the judgment of the playground moms.
The external action might look exactly the same. He still swipes the credit card, but the internal energy driving the action is entirely different. It goes from desperate defense to joyful choice.
And the consultation expands this into a broader, vital philosophical conclusion. It argues that if you are constantly angry at the physical world, if you are resentful that things cost money, if you are furious at the societal expectations of how you should look or what you should own, you are essentially building an invisible, impenetrable wall around yourself.
You are at war with reality,
Hmm.
and you cannot win a war against reality.
You are at war with the very environment you rely on to sustain you. And the text poses a brilliant rhetorical question. How can you possibly expect to attract abundance, wealth, or comfort into your life if you are locked in a bitter war with the physical mechanisms that deliver them?
You can't.
If you resent the concept of money, money will not flow to you easily. If you hate the physical world, your experience of the physical world will always be a constant grinding struggle. You block your own receiving channels.
It's the ultimate shift from being a victim of your circumstances to being a conscious creator of your reality. It's about locus of control.
That is exactly the terminology the analysis points toward. When your sense of worth is tied entirely to external validation, the unwrinkled shirt, the perfect teacup, the approval of a client, you suffer from chronic anxiety because your locus of control is external.
You're at the mercy of everyone else.
You are, as the text describes it, like a leaf in the wind. You cannot control the wind. You cannot control what other people think. You cannot control the macroeconomy. You cannot control when a piece of fabric might fold.
If your psychological safety depends on controlling the uncontrollable, you are condemned to a life of terror.
But when you internalize your locus of control, when you decide fundamentally that you are inherently valuable regardless of the scuff on your shoe or the balance in your checking account, you take back your power.
You anchor yourself.
You stop being the leaf being blown around and you become the tree, deeply rooted in the ground. You can still choose to buy the nice coffee or the expensive silk skirt or the new car seat, but you do it simply to receive the joy and utility it brings to you. You are no longer performing for a phantom audience of critics.
I want to direct this right back to you, the listener. Think about the heavy mask you might be wearing right now. Think about the background apps draining your battery. How many of the financial obligations you feel right now? The pressure to upgrade your apartment, to buy the new car, to curate your wardrobe, to never be seen wearing the same outfit twice. How many of those are actually just invisible rules you created in childhood to avoid being judged?
It's a lot, usually.
What would happen if you just dropped them? What would happen if you decided today that a wrinkle in your shirt has absolutely no bearing on your ability to be a master of your craft?
It is a terrifying thought at first, dropping that armor. You feel naked. But as the case study shows us, enduring that brief moment of vulnerability is the only way to actually breathe. It is the only way to experience true, unburdened joy and abundance in the physical world.
This has been an incredibly profound exploration of the hidden emotional economy that governs so much of our daily lives. We have seen how shifting our focus from the primitive fear of loss, the pain of parting with money, to the biological and spiritual joy of receiving can change our entire frequency.
It changes everything.
We have seen how untangling our inherent self-worth from our material possessions can completely rewire our reality, moving us from a state of anxious defense to a state of joyful, rooted creation.
The mathematical mechanics of value might be driven by scarcity and labor, but our actual experience of value, our ability to enjoy our lives, is driven entirely by our subconscious beliefs.
Which means we have the power to change it. So as we wrap up today's discussion, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Something to examine the next time you are hovering over that add to cart button or feeling that familiar heavy pang of guilt when you try to treat yourself well.
Think of it as an ongoing experiment in your own psychology.
Here is the thought. If your bank account Your spending habits and your financial anxieties were a mirror. A flawless mirror, reflecting only your deepest, most hidden subconscious beliefs about your own right to exist comfortably and joyfully in this world. What exactly is that mirror telling you to heal today?
It's a question that forces us to look past the numbers on the screen and look directly at our own perceived worthiness.
It is.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can't fix your internal blueprint by yelling at the tools. You have to realize that the value is in you all along. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.